Alrighty, friends, we are back. It's your favorite podcast show of the week. Well, in fact, we've skipped a few weeks now, but we're back here, episode number 728 of Location Weekly. And I'm really excited because this week we have Aubriana back with us. She's been super busy doing her agentic AI, stuff and rocking the world and speaking all over the place and just doesn't have the time for us anymore. So, but it's good. It's good to have her here. So, how are you?
I'm good. I made time for you. That's my holiday gift.
My holiday gift. Yeah, thank you.
No, I have missed being here. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you, and yeah, I enjoy this. It's like I love keeping a pulse on what's happening in the industry, and I think that this podcast does such a great job at that. And so I've missed it.
Well,
Here
we,
I
we missed you. So, yeah. So we
am.
have
It's nice
four
to see you.
stories as our normal format here that we want to get into. And so, I'll let you assume your old role and kick us off.
All right. Well, let's start with Pinterest, okay? So Pinterest has rolled out shoppable recipes with Walmart. So every pin shoppable isn't a tagline now, it's more of like a roadmap. So these shoppable recipes with Walmart really are letting users discover a recipe and then they can instantly add all those ingredients to a Walmart cart. I would say, on the surface, this feels like helpful and harmless, like, hey, we're going to save you a grocery list. But I think it's pretty strategic because Pinterest is doing something much bigger. They're collapsing inspiration and intent and transaction into a single moment. So, what makes this especially interesting right now, I think, is the timing. So, Pinterest has been quietly building towards this performance and commerce depth. So, they acquired the Yes for personalized shopping. And now their recent CTV performance tech acquisition, I think that's super interesting to pay attention to. So the Walmart integration shows how those pieces are kind of coming together to live in this product. So they're not just chasing impulse shopping, it's more monetizing planned behavior. So think like meals, holidays, home projects. And I think that's very valuable long term. So why does this really matter? I would say it's turning these high intent moments and inspiration moments into immediate commerce is one. One, Walmart's becoming fulfillment. I wonder if it will stay only Walmart, or I would assume Pinterest is going to expand that. But Pinterest owns that discovery and that decision component. And then it's reinforcing Pinterest's position as like this intent engine. It's not just a social feed anymore. And then their acquisition strategy really is more around personalization and performance. So I think they're not just saying like buy now. It's actually like, hey, you were already going to do this. Let me help. So I think they're not necessarily selling ads anymore, but they're starting to actually sell outcomes. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think the timing is great for this, given the holidays and all the big meals that everybody's preparing right now. I think the personalization piece for me is where, there's a lot of potential. I think if they can start to like really focus on understanding, at an individual level, the kinds of diet that people are into or their budget, that they have or, where they are and what might be locally available or not, from a produce perspective or, those kinds of things. I think there's a lot that can be done with it. And especially if like, certain people have certain allergies or different kinds of things, and you could start to really understand that, that individual and then build recipes, that kind of focus on them. And then obviously have the fulfillment piece tied to Walmart. But, I think as you said, like from a competitive perspective, Target, Kroger, Instacart, all these guys are going to, want to jump in, to this space as well. I don't think this is going to be something that's going to be Pinterest and Walmart, are the only players that are doing this. And I know we have a story a bit later about TikTok too, and I think they potentially could also get into a similar space
Yeah.
around. So
Well, I
yeah,
would just add on Pinterest, like from a consumer of Pinterest, like a user standpoint, I think that Pinterest has gotten really good at personalization in terms of I open the app and there's a bunch of different things across several different topics that really would be things I'm interested in, whether that's fashion, kids' hairstyles, recipes I want to try, like all the things that I see are very personalized. So they know me, but I think that there needs to be a little bit of cleanup because there's so many clicks that follow to get to what you're actually trying to consume. And so I think that if they can improve that, then they can win. Right now, I feel like they're a little bit further behind because of the fact that there's so many jumps and hops to get to the content and the actual meat of what you're trying to get to. Pardon the pun, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, that's cool. And kids hairstyles, eh? Is it like what's hot right now, Brian? Is it like the Avatar movie that's out and what
Well,
is
it depends
it?
on who you ask. My kids are very opinionated. Like my 10-year-old's like, don't touch my hair. I want it to be a certain way.
Yeah.
My 8-year-old's like, let me try this like heart braid and this style and this,
Okay. Okay.
So lots of different braiding styles and things like that.
There you go. Yeah, and are you doing the braiding or Jerome's
Yes.
on?
No, Jerome is not doing the braiding.
All right. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. On to our second story now. So, SoundHound, we haven't talked about these guys for a while, a voice AI platform that operates in cars and in vehicle entertainment systems, integrated into vehicle entertainment systems. They've announced an integration with OpenTable. And so what this is really focused on is enabling drivers to make restaurant reservations hands-free from your car's infotainment system. So, I think this makes sense, especially if, we're all busy people, time is of the essence, you're on the move, you're on the go. You're like, I don't have time to cook tonight on my way home from work. Let me get a reservation for, my favorite restaurant in the hood. So I think this is good. I mean, obviously, you can do it from your phone, you can do it from lots of different places, but having it right there in the car without you having to, take your hands off the wheel or those kinds of things, I think is a good thing. So that the safety aspects of that while driving, reducing distractions, doing this, on a spontaneous, perspective around that, or even planning, a night out, I think is a good thing. I think. You know, SoundHound is one of those where like it's in a lot of systems, but more and more you're seeing, Alexa and Google Assistant and all sorts of things competing in this platform. And then you have like other reservation platforms, on the competing with OpenTable like Resi and Yelp and everybody else. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in this category, for the car manufacturers to get involved, and Apple and Google in particular, with CarPlay and Android Auto, to think about what they could be doing in this space. I was reading another story recently about I think it was GM has just announced like a enhanced partnership with CarPlay on the Apple side, where now you'll be able to use your phone as the key to your car, like to unlock the car and these kinds of things. So, there's a lot happening between the integration of what we can do on our mobile phones and through the apps and the platforms that we have on our phones and how those connect with our car when we're in those
Mhm.
vehicles. And this is just a good example of being able to do restaurant reservations on the go. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that cars becoming more of this commerce surface, not just transportation, is really helpful. We're all trying to do a lot of things at once. And so using voice for those contextual tasks, I think is very, very helpful and very important. Whether that's through your phone, like you said, or through the actual car entertainment system. I think like having that hospitality layer that's like on the way kind of demand captures is really, really beneficial. I feel like a lot of times, it works well when you have two adults in the car and you're like, okay, we got to find something to eat in between games and we're here and then we have to go here. Like, what can we find? And then you're like looking on Google Maps. So, if there's just an easy way to do that with voice, and imagine you don't have two adults in the car and you've got a car full of kids and you're trying to provide or, whatever it may be, these last minute accommodations, like, hey, my parents decided they're coming into town, we need reservations, and here's the stipulations. I think that AI assistance becoming that invisible infrastructure is so valuable. It just we're getting closer and closer for it to be more, I would say, seamless, right? Like it seems to be getting better. I placed an entire order for pickup the other day with an AI assistant, and it did a pretty good job. Like even to the point where it got like the wings extra crispy and all those things
Okay.
that we needed. So I feel like we are moving in the right direction for it to be beneficial. And at some point, the AI is going to do it better than humans, probably.
Yeah, I was in a at a dinner last night, holiday dinner, and there was a lot of conversation at the table about AI and where it's good and where it's not good. And I think some of the discussion was there was a few folks that are from the medical profession, doctors and surgeons and such, and they're like, yeah, it's really helpful for research. It's really helpful for analyzing, imagery and radiology and different kinds of things. But, like, AI is not doing the surgery. AI is not like doing, like that's not going to happen. Um, and, I think it's interesting, like when you think about, what the jobs that require our hands and the ones that don't, right? And, kind of break it down that way in some respects, I think. Yeah, it's super helpful. I use it all the time now, like for so many tasks. It's
Yeah.
I do find though it's like it still struggles with like when I ask it to, create an image, exactly how I want it, and then there's like 17 iterations later, it's still not right. And I'm like, I should have just done it myself.
Yeah, there's
So,
still definitely some challenges.
yeah.
But do you really think that there won't be a day when machines won't perform surgery better than people?
I don't know. I think it's like there's so many things where, like like I have a lot of doctors in the family, and like you hear things like, yeah, like if it's we're going in to do this surgery, this task, this thing, that's one
Mhm.
thing. But once you're in there, like there's all these complications that can happen.
Yeah,
These other things
yeah,
happen, and the AI can't necessarily respond to that on the fly.
yeah,
Like if you
yeah.
program it for this one task, sure,
Well, you still are going to need somebody there,
you're still going to need somebody there, right? Like it's just yeah. So I don't know. It's
but I think that the
and
ability
do
to have
people
like,
will people trust that? Like that's the other thing.
I mean, if you are talking about like something that's micro, being able to handle something at a smaller scale or like minimal incision, minimal invasion
Sure.
versus what we have to do a lot of times for larger surgeries today, that might be an opportunity. I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe.
We're
All
off
right.
topic. Let's
We're
go
off
back.
topic. Let's talk about TikTok.
Let's talk about it. All right. As you mentioned, they have launched a local content feed. So, they're a global platform, obviously, but now they're trying to gain local power, which is interesting. So they're testing this new feed. It's focused on local content, so creators, businesses, and then experiences that are near you. I think this is a meaningful shift for the platform. It's historically been like very global first and maybe geography agnostic, although I would say a lot of feeds are different based on where you are. I've noticed this based on just my travels. But they're introducing these location relevance. It's not just improving discovery. It's really like, all right, how do they lay groundwork for local commerce? So this puts it a little bit closer to think like Google Maps, Yelp, maybe even Instagram's early local discovery days, but it has a lot more, I would say, algorithmic power. So TikTok's like, hey, we're not just shaping the culture, we're shaping where you go next. And I think that that has the potential to be really impactful. So it's making TikTok actionable, not just entertainment. So it's making it, I would say, like more bi-directional versus just consuming content the way most people do it. Although some people are producing content, a lot of us are just consuming the doom scroll. So I think it also opens some real opportunity for local businesses and it can create this new local creators as well. So I think of like, my friend who owns the toy store down the street, like she can add more content about like what kids are playing with and certain toys for certain like maybe learning disabilities or how they're helping. That's great content. And then she can share that locally and people can find those toys in her store, right? And then it also strengthens TikTok's commerce and ad stories. So right now it's very like online shopping focused. And a lot of times you're like, I'm rolling the dice. Is it actually going to get here? Is it actually a quality product? I don't really know what I'm getting. So I think that this maybe gives it a little bit more veracity with people who want to be a little more thoughtful or they want to support local businesses, as many of us do. We want to support our communities. We want to support, maybe minority owned businesses. And so that gives us a better opportunity to connect with that. So I think the TikTok's like, okay, we've reached all these people online. How do we maybe find the people who are offline as well and reach those? So it's not just like a feed now, it could be this local operating system as well, which I think is very smart. It's a little scary, but it's smart.
Yeah, it is a big shift for them, I think. Like, I'm not a big TikTok user myself. I follow, what my kids are posting and what, things like that, like that are on there. But I do think there's an opportunity for businesses here. Like like when you look at other platforms, Instagram, Facebook, et cetera, like, small businesses, tend to have profiles on these platforms or trying to promote what they're doing on these platforms. But
Mhm.
TikTok's been kind of, not the go-to for a business per se, right? Like especially a local business. And so I think, if there's opportunities now to be discovered that way, and I think to have this kind of rich, media content
Mhm.
that you described. Like I love the Toy Story example. I think Toy Story example. I think that makes a ton of sense. And I think there's so many businesses like that. We have
Yeah.
in the hood here, like there's this like local juicery place, like like fresh pressed juices and all this kind of stuff, and like all this healthy, different kinds of things you can have, and they have soups now that winter's coming and all sorts of stuff. Like like if people are into that, or like going back to the Pinterest story about personalization, like if you can understand like these are health conscious people, these are people like whatever, and you can have content that they're already watching on TikTok, but then sort of like build that into what local businesses are offering similar products, that they would be interested in. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, right? Because people are watching these videos. There's no question about that, right? How do you convert that into, commerce, at a local business level? I think there's a huge opportunity for them there, right? And it doesn't mean like Instagram and Snap and these guys are going to sit back and kind of let TikTok take their business, right? But I do think there's enough market out there that they have an opportunity to capitalize on what the success they've already had in terms of building a user base and the content that they have and converting that into local business opportunities now. So yeah,
Very
very
good.
cool. All right, moving to our final story now. So we're going to jump over to Japan. And I spend a lot of time in Japan, and we have at ground level, this close connection with this company called Unary, which is based in Tokyo. And actually, over the last couple of weeks, there was a whole delegation of Japanese tech startup companies here in Toronto that came over with the Japanese government support, basically looking for expanding into Canada and growing partnerships with local businesses. And out of that, because I was representing Unary, who was one of those companies. We had an opportunity to go and sit down with the Toronto Transit Commission and with the Toronto Airport and different folks to kind of understand what they're doing and how some of this technology might fit into their ecosystems. And so this story that I'm talking about now is about JR Central, which is the main railway and transit company in Japan. And so they're testing some AI language services now focused on foreign tourists. And so basically, what they're trying to do is help non-Japanese speaking travelers communicate and understand what they're doing when they're at stations and accessing travel information and, understanding, what the fares are and how that works and how much you got to pay to go, one station versus five stations and all those kinds of things that, they have there. And all of this is in real-time translation and support in terms of what they're doing. So I think it's an interesting one. It's, improves navigation. It makes ticketing and customer service, much easier. And it is, often a high, a stress, travel, situation. Like I travel a lot. I'm in all sorts of different countries. I was just in Dubai, for example, recently, and had never used their transit system. And you're trying to figure these things out, when you're in a new market. And so if you don't speak the local language, it's not that the systems, like, historically when you go to buy a ticket to get on the subway or the train, that they don't have English, in the machine as an option. It's just the ability, like, where everything can just be translated in real time for you and make that easier, no matter what language you're speaking. So I think there's a lot of power to using AI to do this, language translation on the fly. And I think we're seeing lots of services around this, but I love that, it's a transit authority that's, kind of taking this on and saying, hey, we want to do this and we want to make it easier. And then translating that back to, my recent conversations with the Toronto Transit Authority, as one of the host cities for the FIFA World Cup, next summer, we know there's going to be like massive amounts of tourists, from all sorts of countries coming into this city. They're going to have the same challenge. They're going to have the same problem. Like, there's lots of problems. Like, language is one of them, but traffic and management and flow and all these other things that need to get worked on. And so, like, if you can use AI to kind of optimize some of these things, I think all the better. So, good on the JR Central folks.
Yep. I mean, I think you've covered it very well. It's really like about how do we improve tourism without increasing staffing? So efficiency. How do we make the infrastructure more inclusive? So, obviously like language adaptation and other things like that. And then I mean, I think what's interesting is they're really showing AI as like ambient assistance, it's not like a feature here. And I think it's going to reduce anxiety at scale because if you can, help tourists survive Japanese rail systems without panic, that might be a great achievement of humanity. And then I think it's like you mentioned, it's really setting a model for smart transit globally. So how is that going to be adopted around the world?
There you go. Well, that's our four stories for this week. And I really want to thank Aubriana for taking time, our holiday gift of having her on the show after so long. So it's been great to see you and have you here. Thank you for doing this.
The gift to me.
Well, yeah. And then for our listeners and viewers out there, we appreciate you guys tuning in and taking time to consume this. If you have story ideas, please reach out to us. If you want to get involved in the LBMA, we're always excited about that. We do have our European Momentum Summit coming up in February in Munich. So feel free to reach out to myself or Karsten over in Germany there about getting involved in that. But until then, have a great holiday season. Enjoy Christmas and the New Year, or whatever holidays you're celebrating over this time. And we'll see you in January. So thanks, everyone. Take
Happy
care.
holidays. Bye.
Bye.